Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hi, this is Muhammad Imran. I hope you are doing well. This is lecture number 4 in the subject Discourse Analysis. This lecture focuses on context and cultural knowledge in discourse. Whenever we communicate, we speak in context and a social and cultural setup. Until and unless we don't have the idea of context and cultural knowledge, we can't communicate effectively. So, in order to understand what the speaker says, it is important to know in which context they speak and what cultural knowledge the speaker and listener share. So, what are the assumptions that the speakers make when they communicate, and how listeners perceive these assumptions and share knowledge? So, it means that we can't communicate effectively until and unless we don't have the knowledge of context and the knowledge of culture in which we communicate. Let's begin our lecture. Context. Human languages must be both fast and clear. Now, what does mean by fast? As a speaker, whenever we communicate, so we do not utter everything. We leave something unsaid, and we assume our listener will understand what is left over. So, in order to be fast in communication, as a speaker, we leave something unsaid. And what does mean by clear? By clear, we mean that whenever we convey a message, so we assume that our message will be clear to our listener. So it is said that a language or a human language at the same time, it must be fast and clear. But the question is it possible to be fast and clear at the same time? Not at all. We try. As a human being, we try that our language, it must be fast and clear, but it is not possible absolutely to be fast and clear at the same time. So we speaker face the trade-off between speed and clarity every day. So this is a problem with us. We want to be fast and we want to be clear, but at the same time we cannot remain fast or we cannot remain clear. Sometimes we are fast but we lose clarity, and sometimes we are clear but we lose speed. So both at the same time are not possible. We always have to make judgment about how much clarity we can sacrifice for speed and how much speed we must give up to achieve an appropriate amount of clarity for the context we are in. You can see here that how much clarity we can sacrifice for speed. If we want to be fast in our communication, so we have to sacrifice to some extent clarity. Then we will not be clear. Most often when our languages are fast, then they are not clear. So we have to make judgment that how much clarity I need to sacrifice in order to be fast, or how much speed we must give up to achieve an appropriate amount of clarity for the context we are in. Or sometime we have to give up speed, right, in order to be clear. So sometimes we want to be clear, absolutely clear, then we have to sacrifice speed. Or sometimes if we want to be fast in our communication, then we have to sacrifice clarity. But we have to make a judgment that what is more important. Sometimes it is important to be fast, then we have to sacrifice clarity. While other time it is important to be clear, then you have to sacrifice speed. So, as earlier it is mentioned that it is said that a human language, it must be fast and clear at the same time, but it is not possible, right? In some context you have to sacrifice clarity, while in other contexts you have to sacrifice speed. As earlier I mentioned to you people that as a speaker, whenever we communicate, so we leave something unsaid in order to be fast. But when something is left unsaid, so it is possible that our listener may not understand, thus then we cannot remain clear. Or sometime if we explain each and everything and we do not leave anything unsaid, then we may not be fast, there may not be speed, but we will be absolutely clear then. So this is the whole phenomena. Now, in order to speed things along, any speaker leaves things out, leaves things unsaid, as I mentioned in previous slide. So if a speaker wants to be fast, or if a speaker wants to speed things along, so then they what do? They leave things out. They leave things unsaid and assume they will be understood based on listeners' knowledge of the context in which the communication occurs. And the speaker assumes that he or she will be understood by the listeners in the context in which they communicate. So, on the basis of these assumptions, the speaker leaves something unsaid and they try or they assume that the listener will understand what is left over. Here we continue with context. Context is a crucial term in discourse analysis, a very, very important term in discourse analysis because discourse analysts give a lot of attention and focus to context, and they think that it is one of the important element in discourse analysis. Now, what do we mean by it? What is context then? For now, we will define context this way. Context includes the physical setting in which the communication takes place. So first, what is context? Context is the physical setting in which the communication takes place. For example, you're in the office, so that is context. You're in the bedroom, that is context. You're in the market, that is your context. You're in your office, that is context. You're at the bus station, that is context. You're on the road, that is context. You're at the university, that is context. So this is physical setting and everything in it. And now everything that is in that physical setting is also called context. For example, you're in the office, so the door, the window, the table, the chair, the curtain, the wall clock, right? And the way, like the armchair, they are settled or they are organized. So everything that is in your physical setting is also considered a context. So everything in it. Now, the body's eye gaze, gestures, and movement of those present. Now, what somebody is doing with their hands, with their eyes, with their bodies, with their gestures, with their postures. So, all these also include in context. For example, two people are communicating with each other. You have to focus what they are doing with their hands, how they are standing, how they are sitting. Right? The way they are standing, the way they're sitting, the way they move their eyes, the way they move their hand, the way they move their body. So all these are also included in context. Now, what has previously been said and done by those involved in communication. Now, this is also context. What has previously been said? For example, two people are communicating about a topic or about something. So you have to focus what these people have previously said. There is also context, which is called shared knowledge. Any shared knowledge, those involved have including shared cultural knowledge. So if you want to define context, then you will say that context is the physical setting in which the communication take place. So not only physical setting, but everything in it. What is, for example, you're in a classroom, so you will talk about chairs, you will talk about the door, for example, one door or two doors, you will talk about windows, you will talk about the setting. You are in the office, you will talk about the chairs, you will talk about the table, you will talk about the curtain. So these all, everything in the physical setting. Also the bodies, okay, the body language, your eyes, gaze, gestures, and the movement of those present who present in communication. And also what has previously been said, okay, about the speaker and listener. Also shared knowledge, and also culture knowledge. For example, two people are there, okay, so what kind of cultures these two people adopt? For example, one may belong to one culture, or the other may belong to a different culture, or maybe these two people belong to the same culture. So these all things include in context. So context is very, very important and very crucial for discourse analysts whenever they analyze a discourse. So they keep in mind that in which context a discourse takes place, right? Share culture knowledge. So what is the cultural knowledge that is shared by the speaker and the listener? So shared culture knowledge is very, very important in discourse analysis and for discourse analysts. Let's for a moment think about just one aspect of context, namely shared culture knowledge. So there are several aspects of context, and we will focus here only one aspect of context, and that is shared culture knowledge. For example, in my culture group, I assume people eat dinner roughly between 6 and 8 o'clock at night time. And it happens also in my culture group, because if you ask me that what time do you take your dinner, I'll say between 6 and 8 o'clock at night time. Now if I invite you out to dinner and ask when you want to meet, I'm inviting you to dinner, and then I'm asking you that when you want to meet, I assume without saying so explicitly you will give me a time between 6 and 8. People in other culture will vary about what they're taken for granted, normal dinner time. Or it is hard for us to see how much shared knowledge speakers assume and listener bring to communication, since such shared knowledge is usually just taken for granted. So it means that in different culture there may be different time for taking dinner. For my, like in some culture the people might take dinner between 10 and 12, and in some culture people may take dinner between 8 and 10, and in some culture might be people take dinner between 4 and 6. So when you take dinner between 4 and 6 and I ask you that when you want to meet, so I assume, and you tell me that at dinner time, so I assume that you will give me the time between 4 and 6. So it means that people take it for granted, and this is what the speaker assumes that the listener will understand, right? So share culture knowledge. So in every culture that the speaker and the listener, they share knowledge, and on the basis of those cultural knowledge they communicate, and the speaker says something and leaves something out, and the speaker assumes that the listener will understand what is left out because of the same shared culture knowledge. Thank you so much. It was all about this lecture, and this lecture does not end here. If you people are interested and you want me to continue, so please give me your feedback and comment in comment box. Thank you so much.